When you think about an MVP, you should think about something ridiculously simple. This is the first thing you can give to the very first set of users you want to target in order to see if you can deliver any value at all to them. Okay, here is a classic example. This is one of Airbnb's first landing pages in 2008, I believe. One of the things that you might be interested in Airbnb's first product is that there were no payments. When you found a place to stay on Airbnb, you had to exchange money with the host in person. Needless to say, that was a pretty fucking big problem, but they started without payments. No map view. You know how when you search Airbnb, you can see where the house is in the city? You don't have that, sorry. And the person writing all the code, Nate, was working part-time, okay? So everyone tells these kind of magical stories about how everything was perfect from the beginning. Airbnb, not perfect from the beginning. You don't have to have a vision of how you get everyone using it, but just anyone interacting and seeing if they can get value out of the product. You'd be surprised at how many founders' journeys end before a single user has actually interacted with a product they've created. It's very, very common. So please get past this step. It's extremely important. The next one is talk to your users, any of them, after you've launched this MVP and get feedback. This is one that's also extremely common mistake because most founders in their heads have an idea of what they want to build. And so they kind of have this weird feeling that if I haven't built the full thing yet, getting feedback on the shitty initial thing is kind of useless. Of course, it's not going to work. It's not the full thing. The full thing's going to take 3 years, $10 million, a whole team. So feedback on the little thing is useless. The reality is that in some ways, the full thing is this really awesome idea in your head that you should keep in your head, but it should be very, very flexible because it might turn out the full thing that you want to build isn't what your customers want at all. So I have this saying, hold the problem you're solving tightly, hold the customer tightly, hold the solution you're building loosely. And last, most important, iterate. And I like to kind of distinguish between iterating and pivoting. A lot of founders, once they've figured out how to build something, fall in love with it. And so if it doesn't work for a certain set of users, they start thinking, well, I wonder what other problems this thing can solve. Well, the screwdriver is not actually good at screwing in anything, but I wonder what other problems it could solve. And they're like, oh, maybe you can use it to cook. Maybe you can use it to clean. And it's like, no, the problem was I need to screw something in. The user was like a mechanic. And if your screwdriver doesn't help the mechanic solve the problem, keep the mechanic, keep the problem. I need to screw something in, fix the fucking screwdriver. That's the thing that's broken. Most cases, most people should be building a very lean MVP. So by that we mean you should be able to build it fast in weeks, not months. This can either involve software or honestly, we see startups just start with a landing page and a spreadsheet. But most startups can start very, very fast. The second, extremely limited functionality. You need to condense down what your user needs, what your initial user needs, to a very simple set of things. A lot of times founders want to address all of their users' problems and all of their potential users. When in reality, they should just focus on a small set of initial users and their highest order problems, and then ignore the rest until later. You should have a vision of everyone. You should have an MVP very small. All this is a base to iterate from. That's it. It's just a starting point. It's not special in any way. You just have to start. And so please make sure you don't feel like your MVP is too special. In very few cases, you have to build a heavy MVP. I just invented that term, heavy MVP, when I made this presentation 2 days ago. So, maybe it becomes a thing. If you're in an industry with significant regulation, like insurance or banking, sometimes drones, although sometimes not, it's hard to launch. It's harder to launch. You have to pass through a bunch of regulatory bodies first. If you're doing hard tech, if you are building rockets, it is hard to build a rocket in a couple weeks. Biotech, it is hard to invent a cancer drug in a couple weeks. Moonshots, well, fill in all the other blanks. It's hard to bore tunnels in the earth and have extremely fast vehicles that replace cars in a couple weeks. So if you're in that situation, please remember that your MVP can start with a simple website that explains what you do. It's helpful when you talk to people, when you interact with people, that they can refer back to something. So that can be your start, and you can build that simple website in days, not weeks. So in many ways, maybe your heavy MVPs are faster than your lean MVPs in some weird, strange way. Now, I want to talk about launching for a second, because a lot of founders have this misconception about launching. They see big companies launch stuff, and they assume that's what startups do. In fact, they see companies they kind of think about like startups. Facebook's not really a startup anymore, but they see them getting a lot of press and getting a lot of buzz and yada, 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 and they have in their head that that's what a successful company looks like when they launch. Well, let me ask you this question. How many here remember the day that Google launched? No. How about Facebook? Okay. How about Twitter? No. Great. So it turns out that launches aren't that special at all. Okay? So if you have this magical idea of your magical launch you want to do, throw it away. It's not that special. The number one thing that's really important is to get some customers. So to make people feel better, let's use different terms. How about launch is when you get any customers? And how about like press launch? Press launch, really impressive, is when like people write about things and it's all exciting and you get all this buzz. Let's push the press launch off, and let's push the get any customers launch really, really soon. That's our goal here. It's a lot harder to learn from your customers when they don't have a product they can play with. You can talk to your customer all day, but you have no idea whether the thing you want to build can solve their problem. If you put the thing in front of them and it doesn't solve their problem, you know right away. And so all the research in the world is good, but until you can put something in front of people, you have no friggin' idea whether it's going to work. So spending all that time on a pitch deck is not as valuable as spending your time building anything that you can give to a customer.
Why 9 out of 10 startups keep failing after wasting time, efforts, and money? It is always the same story. Entrepreneurs fall in love with their ideas, get feedback from their friends, make the same mistakes as other founders did before them, and end up failing. We came to understand that the most precious feedbacks come from wise entrepreneurs, people that have done the startup journey before you, whether they failed or succeeded. Wizpreneur is an online platform where people with ideas get honest feedback from wise entrepreneurs before investing too much time, effort, and money. Every day, many people pitch their ideas only in 140 characters on Wizpreneur.com and get valuable, honest feedback that helps them save time, money, and effort. The best pitch of the month, voted by the community, gets a prize worth $10,000 for his startup. Have you succeeded or failed with a startup before? You can also make money with your wisdom on Wizpreneur.com. Contact us at info@Wizpreneur.com. Together, we can all improve the success rate of startups if we share our wisdom with new entrepreneurs on Wizpreneur.com. Join the community today at Wizpreneur.com. Wizpreneur.com. Honest feedback from wise entrepreneurs.